It's Black History Month! Well, okay. Look, it doesn't need to be Black History Month to talk about a black superhero character. Let's just get it over with. In fact, one could even say I'm more progressive for postponing until now to release this video. Maybe? I totally didn't get distracted by a new drawing tablet I bought this past month. So let's talk about DC's first ever solo black superhero, Black Lightning. But also, the creator of Black Lightning just came out as a trans woman. They now go by Jenny Isabella, but for the sake of Black Lightning, they've chosen to continue using their old name for the sake of publishing purposes. So because of these things, let's break down the top 10 fun facts about Black Lightning. Those who know anything about Black Lightning know that he's a school teacher who primarily teaches in his hometown of Suicide Slum Metropolis. What you might not know is that before moving back to his hometown, Jefferson Pierce taught at a local high school in New Carthage. This is relevant because Dick Grayson was currently enrolled in Hudson University at New Carthage during the time Black Lightning's debut book had begun. Now, Mr. Pierce is a high school teacher, so he would not have had any time to interact with the boy wonder, but the inclusion of New Carthage at this time was likely a fun Easter egg to readers who had just picked up the comic book and noticed when they were reading it. Though it would definitely be interesting if they ever reference this again should we ever get a Nightwing Black Lightning comic. While many a superhero can be said to have an Olympic-level athletic ability, this is often used as the baseline for just any superhero's physical skill. Black Lightning is one of the few to actually get the gold. That's right, while the original comic only specified that he attended the Olympics, his time in Batman and the Outsiders revealed to us that he won the gold medal in the 1976 Olympic Decathlon. Yes, for those who have a Wikipedia at the ready, this means that Jefferson Pierce beat Caitlyn Jenner in 1976, stealing the gold from them and completely altering our history as we know it. For if Caitlyn had not built the personal and financial success off of their Olympic victory, then Kylie Jenner would never have made that horrible Pepsi commercial 40 years later. Malcolm Merlyn is famously regarded as one of Green Arrow's biggest villains, but ironically, the Dark Archer has just as much of a claim to be one of Black Lightning's. The Dark Archer debuted in Justice League of America issue number 94, where he attacked the Justice League as a whole, only to then issue a challenge to Green Arrow as one Archer to another. But immediately after that story concluded, he would next appear in Black Lightning's solo run, serving as the hero's first supervillain he would ever defeat. In fact, the next time Merlyn would ever even be seen fighting Green Arrow would be 30 years later, when he would appear in Green Arrow's own comic book, the first time he would ever appear in an actual Green Arrow solo book, in 2007, where he teams up with Black Lightning to defeat Merlyn. Now, we all know Black Lightning has the zippity-zappy powers. He's named Black Lightning. In fact, he's one of the most iconic superheroes to ever use lightning. But while all modern portrayals of the character depict his signature lightning as an inherent superpower, originally he had a belt that collected static electricity and converted it into voltage that he could release through a glove he wore. It was only a few issues later into his run that he would somehow internalize that power. He would never be seen with the belt again. Additional fact, while it is a common trope that many black superheroes have lightning powers, this is not some misapplied stereotype. Instead, due to legal disputes with Isabella over the use of Black Lightning in extended media, such as the Super Friends cartoon and Static Shock, DC created pastiches of characters such as Black Vulcan and Soul Power, respectively. In fact, the vast majority of black superheroes who only have lightning powers are just pastiches of Black Lightning in some shape or form. Also though, unlike many of these pastiches who rely primarily on their lightning powers, Black Lightning is actually much more of a martial artist who uses his lightning powers to enhance his abilities. Now, Black Lightning's adventures are not always solo. Following the end of his original run, he had various team-up adventures with Green Arrow and Superman, which led to him being recommended for a position on the Justice League. He was going to serve as the first African-American member of the team and had the support of both of his former allies. There was just one problem that prevented this from happening. Barry Allen believed that Black Lightning was a diversity hire being brought on exclusively for his status as a black man. Green Arrow worked to defend his friend from those criticisms, but it wouldn't matter, as Black Lightning preferred to work alone and didn't want to join the team in the first place. This would not be the last time Black Lightning would be considered for the Justice League, though, and in 2007, following a rebranding with the team, Black Lightning would go on to become a member of the team for 2 whole years. His tenure on the team would remain strong, only coming to an end due to Final Crisis shaking things up. Now, if Black Lightning had gone along with the Justice League's application process back in the 70s, he would still need to do a background check, which would bring to light our not-so-fun fact. Black Lightning killed a kid. Now, this is a very random one-off story that would otherwise be completely ignorable if it was not for the fact that it would go on to be one of the primary conflicts of Jefferson's character during the early issues of The Outsiders. You see, during a team-up story with Superman, Black Lightning would be fighting a group of criminals on the Metropolis subway, only for one of the bullets to hit a young teenage girl riding on the tube. The rest of the story isn't that important, as it revolves around a 1,000-year-old shape-shifting alien that was in love with the girl, but you'd be fair to be confused why I opened with that detail by saying Jefferson himself killed her. Well, that's because Jefferson himself believed that he did. Not literally, but he holds his actions responsible for the young girl's death, as he believed his reckless actions as a vigilante contributed to it. It is because of this that until Batman and the Outsiders #1, Black Lightning would lose access to his superpowers due to a mental block preventing him from using them. The parents of the dead girl would go on to hire a team of supervillain mercenaries to kill Black Lightning out of revenge for their girl's death, which Jefferson was fully willing to let happen. The selfless act convinced the parents that forgiveness is divine and let the incident go away. At the dawn of the new millennium, Gotham was crushed under a massive earthquake. Following a government decision, it was deemed a no-man's land, cut off from all help. Then Lex Luthor stepped in and saved the city, and he would then use the goodwill to platform himself into a presidential election. Among his cabinet picks was Jefferson Pierce as Secretary of Education. That's right, Jefferson is not just a teacher, a superhero, and a gold medalist, he was also the Secretary of Education in the early 2000s. This was primarily done as an effort by editorial to shift Black Lightning back towards being associated with Superman, as his tenure on The Outsiders had made him seem more like that of a Batman character. Internally, though, Jefferson's motivations for doing so were sadly not explained in the beginning. Due to 9/11, most of the plans for President Luthor were thrown out, though Jefferson did remain as secretary until President Luthor was impeached for steroid use. Jefferson is also the only Secretary of Education to see active combat when the world was plunged into the Our World's at War event. Now, after all that had ended and we got Black Lightning back finally on the Justice League, we would learn that Jefferson was serving as secretary as a deep cover role in order to spy on Lex Luthor and report back to Batman. This role would be continued after his service to the country, as he allowed many supervillains to believe he had continued to maintain his relationship with Luthor afterwards, and used that assumption to pump supervillains for useful information about various heists planned by other criminals. Among Black Lightning's career, he has had 5 solo books to his name. The original run by Tony Isabella, created in 1977, which ran for 22 issues until it was cancelled due to the DC Comics implosion. The second solo run, also by Tony Isabella in 1995, this one ran for 13 issues, but Isabella left 2/3 of the way in, resulting in cancellation. Then in 2009, we got Black Lightning Year 1, which was the first solo book not written by Isabella. It attempted to modernize Black Lightning's debut from the 70s for a more modern continuity. Then in 2018, Isabella finally returned to write the 6-issue mini Black Lightning Cold Dead Hands. This was Isabella's attempt to handle various continuity changes that had occurred since their 1990s run. And now, as we speak, Brandon Thomas has been tasked with writing the current Black Lightning mini. Pick it up and all the other stories mentioned here at your local comic book store. In addition to all these great solo books, Black Lightning has teamed up with dozens of other superheroes. We discussed his time with the Justice League, Superman, and even Green Arrow, but his most iconic working with other heroes has to be during his time on The Outsiders. In fact, Black Lightning is the second longest serving member of The Outsiders behind only Katana. And even when Jefferson himself isn't on the team, his daughter Thunder has been there in his place during the 2000s. Before we cover our number 1 pick, let's go over a dishonorable mention. I'm sure many of you are shaking in your seats that I did not mention the Black Bomber incident just yet. Yes, surprising many of you, it is quite possible to talk at length about Black Lightning without having to bring it up. In fact, part of the reason I felt so inspired to make this video was to softly serve as a call-out post to the lazy and unoriginal content creators out there who only ever bring up Black Lightning so they can discuss it. For those of you who genuinely have no idea what the Black Bomber incident was, before Black Lightning was even conceived, DC was trying to come up with an idea for their first black superhero. One of the ideas they were considering was having a white man who could turn into a black superhero. This was incredibly racist, and when Isabella came on to work for DC, she rightfully pointed out how racist the idea was to her editors, and they instead worked with her to create Black Lightning instead. Then Dwayne McDuffie made a humorous jab at his existence in a one-off scene where he wrote Justice League of America. But content creators love to use this one scene to act as if it actually got published or had any relevance at all to come beyond a throwaway anecdote. It has no more relevance to Black Lightning than telling somebody about how Will Smith was almost cast as Neo in The Matrix, but turned it down to star in Wild Wild West instead. It doesn't mean anything regarding The Matrix itself, it's a throwaway anecdote. But it's all anyone brings up when talking about the character. They never bring up any of the fun facts I've discussed in the video. They don't bring up his stories, his family, nothing. They just wanted internet rage bait that comes from bringing up a time when DC almost did a racism, which again, had nothing to actually do with Black Lightning's actual comic. Now we get to our number one fun fact. So remember how I mentioned Black Lightning's daughter Thunder served on The Outsiders? So yeah, Black Lightning has two daughters, Anissa and Jennifer, and is married, divorced sometimes, to Lynn Stewart depending on the continuity. Except, none of that actually makes any sense, so we're going to now do a deep dive into the romantic history of Jefferson Pierce and Lynn Stewart, and how it reveals a deep, dark secret about the Pierce family. So, in the original run of Black Lightning, Lynn is revealed to be Jefferson's ex-wife, who he separated from rather messily before the run began. I don't know if Isabella had ever gone on a record to tell us why they divorced, but it happened. And for the rest of the original run, the two would spend their time slowly warming back up to one another and falling back in love. But then the run got cancelled, and Lynn would not appear again properly until many, many issues into Batman and the Outsiders. So late into the run that Batman took his name off the book, and they are now living in Los Angeles. At this time, Lynn re-enters the story, but now she was dating President Edward Bentama, ruler of his own small nation of Mozambia. Now, this would be revealed that Bentama was secretly super evil and embezzling the humanitarian aid that Lynn had been raising on behalf of his country, and Lynn and Jefferson would become friends again. Yeah, just friends still. Nearly 10 years into Jefferson's initial debut, and he and Lynn still hadn't started dating again. Then the 90s came around, and Isabella begins writing Black Lightning again, and Jefferson is now officially dating Gale Harris. That's right, not Lynn. Now, Lynn would return and begin to reconnect with Jefferson halfway through Isabel's time on the run, but as soon as Isabel left DC, so did Lynn leave Jefferson, unable to stomach with her ex-husband's dangerous lifestyle. 7 years later, we would get introduced to Jefferson's 22-year-old daughter, Anissa Pierce, aka Thunder. 22 years old. Even with sliding timescales and awkward continuity, that doesn't add up. Jefferson and Lynn hadn't even officially gotten back together by the end of the 90s run. They were just hinting at it, and no matter what, 7 years to get a 22-year-old kid just doesn't add up. So we reach the conclusion. Where did Anissa Pierce come from? Now, this is where we reach speculation, but it's my belief that Anissa Pierce is, dun dun dun, Jefferson Pierce's stepdaughter. That's right, I don't think she's his biological kid. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't love her. Jefferson is 100% the type to fully commit to raising Anissa as if she were his. Now, I do think her sister Jennifer is Jefferson's biological child. First, the ages. Anissa Pierce debuted in 2003 at the age of 22. In 2008, Jennifer debuts at 16. That's a big age gap between them. Age gaps like this typically come from a happy accident in the bedroom, but more likely Jefferson and Lynn consummating their second wedding. Oh, also, Anissa has density manipulation powers, while Jennifer has lightning powers, further adding to how much more likely it is that Jennifer is biologically related to Jefferson, and Anissa is only related by marriage and upbringing. So yes, that's the deep, dark secret of the Pierce family, as well as the top 10 fun facts about the Pierce family.